All right, y'all. Good evening. Happy Wednesday. Everybody eating. I know people stuffing their faces. I know. But we're going to get it started. For those that don't know who I am, I'm Kelly McGowan. I am the founder and executive director of Transform 314. Yes, yes. And so we do this thing every month. It's called our community meetup. And so what we do is we convene space to talk about how we can address an issue that everybody say we have in the city of St. Louis. We got some jacked up and unsafe streets. So we convene every month to really figure out, not to complain about that, even though people vent, and that's fine. But we really try to make this a productive space and also to make sure people are connected because there are things happening. So we try to create that space to make sure that people are connected to those efforts and can engage and have a say in how that comes about. So here is our rundown for the evening. I just introduced myself. So we'll go around really quickly, briefly, for folks to know who's all in the space. I'll provide a quick review of the purpose of our meetups, our house rules. Can everybody hear me okay? Okay. And then we'll also get into the fun part, updates on what's happening in the city of St. Louis. And we have special guests to provide updates about the complete streets policy. I know we've been talking about that a lot. So we have special guests in the building, Christian Bishop from Alderwoman and Schweitzer's office, her legislative assistant. He'll be in to provide some updates and we can kind of engage in discussion about what that's giving. We'll also be talking about the transportation and mobility plan that's happening. So I want to shout out, we have another special guest in the building, Taylor in the house with Vector Communication. She'll be speaking about what's happening with that. And then we'll also get into, I know, my DJ over here, he eating. I would have him cue the Young and the Restless. I would have him cue the Young and the Restless theme song. But we'll get into the city's efforts in updating city's charter through the Charter Commission. We'll talk about those things. And then we'll leave the space open for announcements and calls to action. Sound like a plan for tonight? Yeah? All right. So we're going to get into it real quick so we know who's all in the space. I'm going to ask everyone in the room to give us your name, tell us what ward and or neighborhood you live in. If you know it, if you don't, it's okay. But feel free to share that information. And also, what is one thing that brought you here tonight? Okay? All right. So I'm going to start. I'm going to start with Ryan.
My name is Ryan Brown. I live in Ward 14, downtown West, I guess what they call it now. And one thing that brought me here is I'm just trying to make sure that I stay active in what's going on civically here. I do a lot in the creative community, so I'm trying to make sure I kind of balance that out in the streets. Literally.
Literally. All right, Mr. Stringfellow.
My name is James Stringfellow. I'm from Ward 11, and I've been active with 314 for at least a year now. And I've also recently got involved in the mobile transportation and mobility plan. So those are the two things that brought me here tonight.
Cool beans.
Craig Smith, Ward 8, Block 1902, neighborhood, Marine Villa. I'm here because Kelly told me to be here. Here because of policy and also for the students.
Hey, I ain't mad at it. That's why we have it. Chill. Bring people in. Taylor.
I live in North Hampton, Bardsley, and I'm here to bring information.
Chelsea.
Thanks. I'm Chelsea Thomas. Honestly, I think I know what ward I live in, but I live in Ward 14, according to my neighbor and cousin. What brought me here? I feel like my cousin called me out about wanting to be
All right, Lavonda, and then we're gonna come up here. Message. All right, we're coming around here. Daniel. Don't butter it up. Don't butter me up. Don't butter me up. Yeah. Cool.
Hey everyone, my name is Darius Walker. I live in Ward 12. What brought me here tonight, I currently work as a community consultant, supporting organizations like Transform Moving Forward to show up better for us. So making sure that I'm putting their money where their mouth is. And I am also interested in making sure that as I'm consulting with organizations, that I have my ear to the ground and understand how to support them best. Who else better to get that from than Kelly? Because you know, butter up, but you know.
Ah, Darius. All right, we got one more to know.
I'm Tanel. I live in Ward 10. Proud St. Louis and just looking to learn and grow and support my city.
Thank you. All right. So we got a lot of folks living in different areas of the city. And I just like doing that for people to see that we all across the city, north side, south side, in between, we're all looking to improve our city. So it's time to get to work. So I already kind of talk through the purpose of our community meetups. So I'm going to kind of keep it moving through some house rules just so we all operating on the same wavelength because we got some newbies in the space. So first, one person will speak at a time. We have another microphone up here. So if people do want to speak and they're not as projecting with their voice, folks can come up so everyone can hear on this other mic. So I want to lift that up. Also, we got a lot of different folks in here, differences of opinion. Disrespect is not tolerated in that space, in our space. Also, we follow Vegas rules, which means personal stories and government names stay here, but the lessons and learnings leave here because that's what we'll use to apply to bring about the changes we want to see in our community. Number 4, we will give everyone their time to shine. Number 5, we have a parking lot. So if someone asks a really, really pressing question, like Mr. Stringfellow, and maybe we don't have the answer tonight, we'll put it on our parking lot and we'll revisit it with the right answer at the next meetup. And then lastly, but certainly not least, people do not have to be knowledgeable of local government to be an active participant in our meetups. Cool? Good? All right, let's get into it. So, complete streets. Before we get Christian up here, I want to make sure, because we have some new folks, so I want to kind of take a step back to kind of walk through, like, what is complete streets? What is this policy? What does it do? What doesn't do? So I took this literally from Smart Growth America. They are a national expert when it comes to all things related to complete streets. So I literally took a screenshot of this and put it on the slide. So complete streets is basically an approach to planning, designing, building, operating, and also maintaining streets that make sure that it is safe for everyone to use them, regardless of how you use the streets, your ability, your age, all of that. So that's basically the concept, and really making sure that there is a strong complete streets policy, make sure that, again, everyone can use them, and most importantly, it builds a safe network throughout the city, which means that everyone can get to point A to point Z, no matter where they stay in the city of St. Louis, to get to the grocery store, to take their baby to school, et cetera, to go to work. So those are kind of some of the main concepts of complete streets and what makes a strong policy. So complete streets are, again, an approach and process to street design that includes things like sidewalks. It includes things like accessible public transportation stops, roundabouts, bike lanes, pedestrian signals. So those are some design elements that are part of complete streets. Complete streets are also a way to make sure, as I mentioned, that everybody, and that is not a typo, can use the street safely. Complete streets are also implemented in a way that creates, as I mentioned, a connected network of streets in a city. And lastly, but certainly not least, it's an effort that prioritizes communities that historically have not seen a lot of investment, as well as folks that historically have not been included in decisions related to transportation. So this is an example, just an illustration of examples of complete streets throughout the country. And don't worry about it. Make sure you sign in at the table. Everyone will get copies of these slides, okay, via email. Just make sure you sign in so you can see this. But these are just examples to show how other cities have incorporated, implemented complete streets. So complete streets are not, because I got to say this because I have a lot of conversations with my people. Complete streets are not a one-size-fits-all solution, which means that it's going to look different for a different city because every city has different needs, is different things going on. So it's not going to look the same in one city compared to another city. And last, and I got to say this, okay? Complete streets is not the only solution to address issues related to our jacked up and unsafe streets, okay? Is a strong complete streets policy passed going to prevent little Ricky from, doing some donuts in the middle of the street? No, okay? It's not. However, it may play a role in being able to prevent that, but it is just one tool in a toolbox, as people like to say, to really make sure that we can address these issues. So again, not one policy, not one program, not one thing is a silver bullet to solve all of the issues in our city, right? Cool? All right. So a little bit of an overview about the complete streets, the policy, the efforts in the city of St. Louis. It started last legislative session through Alderwoman Schweitzer, who sponsored it, but the session, it ended. And so she continued moving things forward with this policy, updating the city's policy, reintroducing it this session as Board Bill 51. So our pictures up there. I'm one of those people, I want to see who these people are. So I always make sure I try to provide pictures of the people we talking about because they are people. So we know who we talking about. So Alderwoman Schweitzer's the primary bill sponsor, and the original bill co-sponsors were Megan Green, who's the president of the Board of Aldermen, and also Alderman Browning, who represents my ward, the 9th Ward. And then for folks that aren't aware of how the legislative process works, so a bill is introduced by the full Board of Aldermen, then it gets assigned to a committee. And so within the committee, that bill, it has to be approved and given the green light by that committee before it can go before the full Board of Aldermen for their consideration for final passage. So this bill was assigned to the Public Infrastructure and Utilities Committee. And this is not deja vu. Some of these pictures are the same from the previous slide. So the chair of the Public Infrastructure and Utilities Committee is Alderwoman Schweitzer, this bill sponsor, the vice chair, one of the co-sponsors of the bill, Alderman Browning, and we also have Alders Vollmer, Keys, and Velasquez rounding out the full committee. All right, so now I am going to ask, and this is not Alderwoman Schweitzer, this is Christian Bishop, her legislative assistant, to come up and provide updates on where we are with it. So clap it up, please.
All right, so firstly, I would like to thank Kelly. She did an excellent job explaining what Complete Streets is. I think one of the important points that she made is that this is not a single solution to all of the issues that we're seeing. It's not a single solution to all of the issues in every neighborhood. So essentially what our policy did is it updated the original policy adopted by the city in 2014. And that was, at the time, the best standards across the nation. We adopted it, and then it sat unupdated for the last 10 years. So we went ahead and updated it. In that update, what we did was we made sure that the steering committee, who is in charge of overseeing the implementation of the Complete Streets policy, made sure that their meetings are public and available for public comment. So members of the public are able to come to their meetings, which will be held quarterly. That's once every 3 months. And you're allowed to make comments on any of the projects that we're doing in the city that are over $500,000. So their main objective is to review all of the projects coming through to the city that will have a price tag or an estimated price tag of over $500,000 to make sure they're aligning with Complete Streets. Another really important part that we added into the Complete Streets policy was context sensitivity. So when they're planning a project, they have to allow for the community to speak to what they want to see, to incorporate aspects that they want. So not every neighborhood or every community is going to want a bike lane, but some might. So including that in the context sensitivity is really important. I think another thing that we added that's really important is our Vulnerable Populations Index, which takes into account census data throughout the city that accounts for lower income, populations of people of color, those without a vehicle. All this data is collected through the census every 10 years. I think another important part is we're going to be looking at what is referred to as a high crash. Help me. Thank you. High injury network. So that is currently being built out by the East-West Gateway organization, and we're going to adopt that to use that to indicate where we need to prioritize the projects. So where the worst crashes and worst roads are. But I think Kelly overall did a really good job of explaining what the policy does in essence. So if you have any specific questions about the policy, I'm more than welcome to answer those. So there is not a final project in this. So essentially what the policy does is it's a guiding policy for all projects throughout the city. So any project that will be touching the public right-of-way where pedestrians are, this is the policy that guides what they have to do for that project. So what considerations they have to make, who they need to talk to, and that they have to have a public meeting on it. For the project?
Yes. Okay, now, in order for someone on the north side to get a change, wouldn't this project language have to be formed?
Not necessarily. So in essence, what this is going to do is this going to help create a guideline for where they're prioritizing projects. So annually when they're deciding what projects they're going to be doing, this will help inform where those projects are going to be, which are going to be in historically disinvested areas and areas with higher percentages of crashes, which typically we've seen from data occur on the north side of the city. So this will, in essence, help make it more equitable on where the projects are going to be. And it just is a guiding principle on what they need to include within the projects. Sure. Thank you for that question. That was actually a very lengthy discussion that we had with our TMP consultants, actually. We landed on that because there are some projects that we do within the city that are simple, like maintenance projects, like repaving or what we call resurfacing a street, which can cost $250,000, $300,000. So we didn't want to include those in that if we're just repaving a street. So we raised it, but we made sure not to go too high because any projects $1 million or more are federally funded and they fall into some really weird specific guidelines that they have to follow. So we wanted to make it that more projects were included and not less. Yeah.
is that like a type of project that would fall into y'all's, like, for this policy, or it would be something that's like a little bit smaller, so it can happen, but it doesn't need the complete streets policy to help guide it?
So it depends, definitely. So depending on what you want to do, it can be a different price range. So the project could happen and not have to fall into the complete streets policy. However, it likely will follow the complete streets policy anyway. But a bike lane can cost as little as like $20,000, or we have a project along South Broadway currently, which is a project that's like 1.2 million for a cycle track and like repaving and other traffic calming measures. So it really just depends project to project. Yes.
I guess I'm a little confused. So isn't paving a street an opportunity to rethink the way you would design that street or paint this, like Magnolia with by Target Park was just repaved? Wouldn't that have been an opportunity to like add in a bike lane?
Sure. So specifically on Magnolia, I can speak to the fact that that would have been over $500,000 because of the length that it is. And I'm pretty sure on that they did what we call a mill and pave, which they tore up the old asphalt and put down new asphalt. So that definitely would fall into our complete streets policy, and they would review it to see what else could be implemented. So a lot of these projects, that is a consideration that they take into account, is adding in different measures. Currently, a lot of it is driven by the alderperson, so it changes ward to ward. Part of this policy is making those projects publicly available so that people can comment on them and make their desires and their wants known so that those can be implemented into the project. Did that answer your question? Okay. Yes. Can you elaborate on that for me? Are we talking about the one that goes down yes. So a lot of those are, a lot of like large projects like that are going to be like federally funded projects. So those will fall directly into this. So we don't apply for any federal grants unless it's a price tag of $1 million or more. All right, no more questions for me? Yeah.
The Alderman or whatever other city project is going up, right? It's not like a thing for suggestion from the community to offer up ideas, right?
I mean, it can be used as both because the public meetings are for you to give your comment, your feedback. So if you have a suggestion for them, you can offer that. But the way it was envisioned is for them to be able to review and allow the public to comment on projects that are moving forward or are being envisioned. So any project that we think will have an estimated price tag of over $500,000 more automatically has to go to the Complete Streets Committee. So even if we're just in the beginning phases and we think this is going to cost more than $500,000, it has to go to that committee. And that's when you go and you put in your input and ask for things. Yes.
So if no one or if not enough people make an effort to show up to the meeting, you guys just come up with a plan on your own?
So we will move forward with the plan, but we always try and incorporate the feedback that's given to us by residents or constituents throughout the city. So that is always something that we take into consideration. And at the current moment, everything is really driven by the alderperson. We're looking to change that in the future. That is something that we have been in a lot of discussions on. But this is to set up a process that will take that into consideration as we move forward. So this is really the first stepping stone to a much larger project that we're working on.
But people need to show up. But we're working to make sure we can make sure people are even aware.
That's the thing.
To
like,
be
if they're
able
not
to
aware, how do we go about?
Right. So all these so there are certain like notification requirements for public meetings, and we're actually looking at updating those to make them more specific because currently the notification notification requirements say that we have to post notification at least 24 hours in advance, and technically it says that we were supposed to publish it in 2 widely circulating newspapers, but mostly what they do is they post it on the city website, or they physically post it in the building where the meeting's being held. So we're looking at updating how we do the notification. Yes. Sure. So as of today, we launched a new webpage on the city's website called Friendly Streets. On that, it has an interactive map that has all of our currently funded projects for the next year, next couple of years actually, and you can look at that to see where the projects are happening. It's called Friendly Streets. It's a page on our city's website, and I can get the link to Kelly so she can send it out afterwards. Yes. Sure. It is stlewis-mo.gov. Yes, stlewis-mo.gov. Of course. Yes. So it has passed through the entire board. It is now on the mayor's desk. According to our charter, she can't act on it in the first 10 days that it's on her desk. So as soon as that 10 days is up, she's going to sign it because we already have the full support of the administration. She already said she's going to sign it. So we are all set on that.
Yeah, pass, y'all.
All right. Any other questions? No? Okay, I'm going to turn it back over to Kelly now.
All right, thank you. Thank you for providing that information, those updates. I'm going to take a bit of a personal privilege here, and then we're going to get into the transportation mobility plan. So as Christian mentioned, the bill, it did pass. So just waiting on the mayor to sign into law. I did want to lift up, again, I am taking personal privilege here. So I did provide through representing Transform 314, a written testimony. I think it was for the second public hearing that the bill was addressing. And my written comment, it represented, the clerk announced that we were in support, full support of the proposed bill. That was not necessarily accurate, as we did provide suggestions to contribute to the language. So I've been putting it on our record, and I have been expressing to make sure that it is on the record in some way or corrected to make sure that our views on the bill are accurate, because receipts are everything. And people will go back to that and go back to those videos. So I really wanted to kind of put that out there. So the full comment, everything, head to our social media platforms at Transform 314 to get a gist of our thoughts and our stance on it. Obviously, we are in support of updating the Complete Streets policy, period. We just want to make sure that it is explicit that these projects prioritize historically underinvested communities. So we're going to keep it moving. And I do want to lift up, before we head to the transportation mobility plan, that this is just the beginning with Complete Streets. So it was passed. Obviously, there is this committee, right, that will allow for public input, which never did. So we will continue to stay informed and keep folks updated as far as when some of these things really start rolling out, so people can participate and engage and provide their feedback accordingly. So it's just the beginning. It passed, that was part of it, but now it's time to do the work and implement it. So speaking of the work, now we are going to get into the city's transportation and mobility plan. Real quick, as Taylor comes up, who's heard of this happening in the city of St. Louis? Okay, so people are going to do some learning tonight. So I'm turning it over to Taylor. Clap it up for her, please. Clap it up.
Well, this is so exciting because we just launched this plan. So it's good to hear that people are already learning about it. So my name is Taylor Bardsley. I'm with Vector Communications. We are a communications and public engagement firm here in the city of St. Louis. And we are doing the community engagement for the citywide transportation and mobility plan. Quick show of hands. Does anybody know if we currently have a transportation and mobility plan for St. Louis? Raise your hand if yes.
We have not had one since 2014.
Even longer than that, Mr. Stringfellow. And thank you for your hope, but we do not have one. And that's a problem because transportation and mobility plans for most cities help to guide people's visions for how the streets and sidewalks should look. So this project team is attempting to rectify this. So a transportation and mobility plan sets the guidebook for what people want to see out of streets and sidewalks. So to accomplish that goal, we have a long list of to-dos that we are trying to accomplish. So the first and most important one to the team is engagement. That's why I'm here tonight. That's why you're going to see us at pop-ups, YMCAs, Paraquats Orthwine Center, open houses for the next several months. This plan is going to be driven by city residents' values and hopes for the future of streets and sidewalks. By values, I mean concepts like safety, equity, accessibility, environmental sustainability. All of these values go into what make up decision-making. So first and foremost, engagement is top of the list. We are also doing data collection on all the streets and what is called a street design guide, which looks at literally every single street in St. Louis. So I'm talking that little side street that nobody uses to like Kings Highway. We're looking at every single one of those and their form and function, because some of them might be too wide and they're in a residential area. Some of them might be too narrow and trucks are trying to squeeze through. So we're looking at each one of those. There's also a policy and ordinance review that looks at all of the policies that currently govern the streets and sidewalks. So that's all the things we're trying to accomplish in this plan. It just started out. We have a community-wide survey going out very soon that's going to ask for what people want to see, but also their experiences today using the transportation system. Everything from public transit to traffic fatalities or crashes, to the values that you would like to see implemented. So the final plan will help our elected officials to guide the next step of the future of our streets. And it will be accomplished by May of 2025. So between now and then, we will do continuous public engagement to keep bringing out information to groups like this and to different neighborhoods around the city. Any questions about the TMP? Yes. So I work for Vector Communications, and we are contracted with the city of St. Louis to do engagement for this project. Yeah, by May of 2025, the plan will be done. The ultimate goal is that it will go into the comprehensive plan for the city of St. Louis. So it will be one section of that huge plan guiding the future of our city. That's correct. Yes. So this will be, we're not the same as Complete Streets, but we do work with that team. So we will be out as much as they are. Go ahead. Oh, corner.
Is there plans for this to align with the Safe Streets grants and the plans and all that?
Yep, Safe Streets is part of this. In back.
Activities with the pole matching going north south,
Mhm.
green line coming up on land. Are you all
In cahoots? Yes. So a big part of this plan is actually looking at all of the infrastructure projects that are currently happening or are planned for the city and bringing them all under the same umbrella. So we're not just reacting and doing little bits and pieces, but we're looking at the whole system. No, don't have that yet. Sorry, go ahead. So we're asking people in our survey if they currently use the very few Lime scooters I ever see out. But if you would like to see, or the bird scooters, if you would like to see more micromobility, please put that as a comment. Yes, link to the survey will be sent to Kelly. I'm really hoping it launches this week. Yeah, so we're actually doing a statistically valid survey, meaning that we are surveying 400 city residents who represent the demographic population of the city. And that's being conducted by a research firm, so we have statistically valid results. And then we're also taking out the survey to neighborhoods and different groups. So I will be out in parking lots, at bus stops, at festivals for the next several months. Go ahead.
And I'd like to say that this is at the beginning, and please share the facts that if you see a pop-up that says transportation and mobility, to stop and give some input, because they're genuine. The input they need, that's what they're gonna make a decision on, the input. And they're just starting out, and they're gonna be in very many places. So give input, that's what they need.
Mr. Stringfellow gets a gold star as an ambassador of this project. Thank you. Go ahead in the back.
Are you guys currently working with Metro or like in partnership with them? And then also like, are you guys getting any data from like the transit app that we use on Metro?
So we are working with different transportation and mobility groups and partnerships. So we did a partners workshop with them where we brought people who are decision makers from Great Rivers Greenway, MoDOT, Metro, TrailNet, all together. And we talked about this plan, got their input, and we had them actually give us their values for transportation and mobility, which we're asking of all the citizens as well. So we'll continue to partner with them. And if you have specific feedback on the app or maybe accessibility of the app, that's a good thing to put on the survey as well and to comment on. Yeah.
Is there a time frame for the, is it a 10-year plan, a 20-year plan?
So this plan goes until May 2025 in the sort of information gathering and planning stage. After that point, we're putting it up to be part of the city's comprehensive plan.
Is that comprehensive plan, is there a time frame that you know of that?
I don't have anything to do with the city's comprehensive plan, but I know for this plan, we are going through May 2025 and gathering information. Yeah, this is a chapter. So we are using this plan as a guidebook for implementation. So our elected officials, city officials who work on our streets and sidewalks would turn to this plan when having to make decisions. They would look to see what residents' values in a certain area might be, or the use of those streets and how that might need to change, and use that to be more proactive than reactive. Does that answer your question? Yeah. Yeah, they've got more information over there on that end. Any other questions? All right, great. Well, the website is tmp-stl.com. tmp-stl.com. Please visit it. I will give all the information to Kelly to send out to make sure you all can give your input. And I'm excited to keep showing up to bring information. So thank you.
So I have one more thing, one more quick question, because I'm gonna take this personal privilege because I am. But can you speak a little bit too? Because I know you mentioned the survey will be launching. Y'all will be popping up in different places and spaces throughout the city as well to get input on how to really develop this plan. There's also a community advisory committee too that's kind of helping with that. So can you speak a little bit about what that entails?
So our community advisory committee is made up of 17 city residents who represent every neighborhood of the city. And we have people who represent living here for less than 5 years to I've lived here my whole life. We have an array of ages and also an array of abilities. And those people, will meet with them around 4 times over the plans process. but they're also kept involved in what we're doing so they can bring it out and be project ambassadors, like Mr. Stringfellow over here. So people applied to be on the committee, and we have a really fabulous engaged group who care just like you all do about the streets and sidewalks, which is really exciting.
Thank you for entertaining my question, and thank you for coming up here. Cool. And if people have not already, there are some brochures laying out information about the plan on our beautiful table. Look at that tablecloth. We are official. Oh, look, we got a model over here and everything. Okay, all right. So feel free to grab those. And again, hopefully people did sign in. I had people email or some way to reach you, because I will send the link to the website. Also, once that survey is popping and ready for people to fill out, I will send it to y'all too, because I am the queen of the follow-up, okay? So, yeah, I know. So we are rounding it out. Oh, yeah, okay, we're doing pretty good with the time. All right. The Charter Commission. So before I get into this convo, by show, I know, Derek, you, just indulge me. By a show of hands, who has heard of the city's Charter Commission? Raise your hand if you, okay, all right. Cool, okay, well, we're gonna get into it. So before we talk about the commission, I got to break it down, right? Because what is the charter and why should we give a damn about it? Why should we care about it, right? So for people that are not aware, basically the charter is equivalent to, I say, our city's constitution. So it literally lays out how our government is structured. Who does what, why, and how? What are the qualifications? All those types of things. Something I want to note that is important is the only way the charter can be updated is through us, the vote of the people. That is powerful. Something else to know, our city's charter has not been comprehensively updated in mad long, okay? So this effort is kind of a big deal because we know the world has changed. I mean, the world's changed since COVID. So if we're talking about a whole century, so it needs to be updated. And something else I just really want people to know, because I've been listening to a lot of the meetings and public providing their comments and feedbacks on a lot of this process and stuff. People believe and feel that the city could do better on how they deliver services, period. I think that's something that we can all agree with. The charter is related to this because it lays out how those services are delivered and who delivers said services. So really taking a look at how we update that has the potential to also improve the services that we receive from the city of St. Louis. So I just wanted to start this off just level setting so we get an understanding of what the charter is and why it's important, why this is a big deal, and why this is so important. Also, I'm going to plug, if you haven't yet done so, head to the Transform 314 YouTube channel. We have an entire series called Straight Facts, breaks down how local government works in 5 episodes. Our first episode is the charter. Check that out. It's 3 minutes. All right, so what is this Charter Commission? And again, I want to provide this information because just so people are aware. So the point of the commission is for them to consider and recommend changes to the charter every 10 years. And again, we the people are the ones that will give the final approval, not the Charter Commission. They will recommend, but it's by the will of the people and through the voters that will actually change the charter. So the commission is tasked with, and I took this off the City of St. Louis's website because this is a law that we approved with our votes. I'll get to that a little bit. But basically, the Charter Commission was responsible and tasked with holding monthly public meetings to make sure that everybody that wanted to weigh in on the charter could. The Charter Commission was also tasked with presenting drafted changes to the charter within 10 months of it being established or starting to meet. The Charter Commission was also tasked with holding at least one public hearing before and after the publication of drafted proposed charter amendments. And then the Charter Commission was also tasked with sending its final recommendations for the city charter to be changed to the City Board of Elections by August 15, 2024. And the commission will no longer exist after that. And then after that, it's on us, the residents, to decide if we want to change the charter with those recommendations or not. So I'm going to pause. Are there any questions? Yes. Are you talking about like on the, as far as like on the ballot? My understanding, and I could be wrong, will it be individual? Yes. So there will be individual proposed amendments to the charter, correct, on the ballot? Yes.
I thought there was a nuance not necessarily set forth in the original ordinance that it was going to the Board of Alderman.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we're gonna get into that, Craig. Any other? Did you have a question? We're gonna get into it. But see, Craig, we here. So this is a timeline. It's a little funky up here, but just to show again, because we voted on this in April of 2023. We voted to establish this commission. So I want to lift that up because a lot of people do not know that. Like, what's the city doing with this? We voted for it. So in April 2023, folks applied for it. They were approved by the Board of Aldermen and the mayor last summer, and then they started meeting in August of 2023. So again, I will send these slides to you, but these are the members that are on the Charter Commission, and there are some requirements listed below there, but I just, again, want to lift up and express that, again, these are real people. I didn't have the time to find their individual pictures, but these are the folks. All right. So what have they been doing? What have these people been doing since they started meeting? So from August 2023 to June 24, ultimately they approved roughly seven drafted recommendations. We'll discuss them very briefly this evening, and one in a little bit more detail. So these folks worked through the charter and held a whole bunch of meetings. And in those meetings, they formed subcommittees. They met with a whole bunch of folks from people that work for the city. They met with people that worked in other cities, again, to like really identify some of the issues in the charter, potential opportunities to change to make it better. And also, again, just figuring out how can we come up with some solutions to address a lot of these issues impacting city residents. I mentioned earlier, cue the Young and the Restless theme music. It got real in some of those meetings. They changed the chair, okay, of the commission. Not just like a month in, like it was real. And people from New York was there. And even the people from New York was like, wait, should y'all be handling this business? Y'all shouldn't be handling this business. Should we be over here? Because this is awkward. Like, I don't know how I feel about this. So it was some stuff going on there. And then, as Craig mentioned, from what I could gather, I think as the process really started coming together and it's like, oh crap, we need to submit these recommendations, it was learned that they would have to submit their recommendations to the Board of Aldermen members, and then those recommendations would have to be approved via the legislative process before it gets sent to the city's Board of Elections. So there's a lot of stuff happening in a very short amount of time, dealing with something very complex like our city's charter. Then this month, there was a public meeting, and also the commission has some finalized recommendations that they have since or plan to send to the members of the Board of Aldermen. So they did have a public meeting at the Julia Davis Library. It was real. It was real. And it was people providing their thoughts on the process, on the proposed drafted recommendations. It was rough. But as a result of that, there were some recommendations that either got scratched or maybe got tweaked a little bit. So again, the point of showing up and saying what you guys say, it matters. All right. So what were the recommendations that they finally approved last Monday, I believe it was? So this is a super, super high level overview. And again, I will send the kind of like a lot of the documentation forward to folks if people want to see like what it is. Obviously, there are still steps beyond this. I want to lift that up. These are recommendations. So this is not guaranteed that this is what we'll be gonna vote on, because the Board of Aldermen and the mayor and them, they got to do their thing before it even reaches the Board of Elections. So these are roughly the recommendations. Creating an office of the public advocate, and I kind of put up there what this office is, and it would respond to complaints regarding city services, and it's supported by legal support with subpoena power that is separate from the city's legal counsel. Second recommendation would expand the authority of the Board of Aldermen to increase the budget, because right now they ain't got that power to do that. They can take stuff out of the budget, but they have to work with the Board of E&A, estimate and apportionment, have their conversations, key, hey, we need to add this here. And then through the Board of E&A, there are some things that can be increased through the budget. But as it stands right now, the Board of Aldermen, they approve the budget, they take stuff out of the budget, but they can't add anything to the budget. So one of the recommendations was to make sure they have that power. Also to create a Department of Transportation, which we're gonna talk about a little bit in a minute. The next recommendation, to modernize the charter language. Again, this document is old, so that's needed. And also they're looking at reforming elections, because right now municipal elections are typically held in, what is that, March and April. And so what these recommendations would do would make it so that the primary elections are held in August, the general elections are held in November, to kind of align with some of the other elections that we have, like presidential elections, statewide elections, because, you know, to drive to get more people to become more engaged and involved and show up, because people, we already know, I ain't gonna mention it. Did you have a question? Yeah. No. we gonna get it. It's a streets. We have a streets department. Are you talking about something else? Yeah, so that's a statewide Department of Transportation. I'm sorry. The city of St. Louis does not have a Department of Transportation. We have a streets department. But yeah, you're talking about MoDOT, and that's the state. All right, okay, we got enough time. We're gonna make this happen, because I like us getting up and moving around and doing stuff. So I had 2 pieces of paper. Did everyone get these documents? Kind of, sort of. If you did not, please come to me so you can get the information you need. Okay, so what we gonna do? Okay, yeah, we're gonna do this. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna split up into groups. So we're gonna do this old school classroom style. We're gonna have people count off, because we need some movement in here. All right. So we're gonna have 5 groups. 5 groups. So what I would like folks to do is to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 till we get around the room. And then the 1s will congregate over in that corner, the 2s will congregate over here, the 3s, the 4s, and then the 5 somewhere in the middle. Okay? Good? All right, we're gonna start. The tech people, nah. Can you, yeah, because you got to handle the tech. We're going to start with Snell. Are you participating or? Okay. Anybody else? 1, 2. All right, let's get up, y'all, and move. So we got the 1s and the 2s. The 2s are this way. The 1s are closer to the green table. We got the 3s over here somewhere, the 4s in this area, and then the 5s are in the middle. Yeah, you can grab a chair. And then I'm going to tell y'all the instructions. Yes, I want y'all to make sure y'all get where y'all need to be first. All right. Yes, one of each. All right. Is everybody with their peoples or who they gonna be with for now? Okay. All right. All right, y'all. So we gonna see how long this take. Well, I'm gonna check in with y'all in about 10, 15 minutes to see how it goes. But the directions are kind of up here. So basically you all have not 1, but 2 sheets of paper. So what I would like for you to do, this piece of paper, proposal, Department of Transportation, Charter Commission, yada, yada, yada. I want you all to take some time to read through this document. It's not that long, y'all, I promise. Just kind of read through it. And I know in the document it mentions how these proposed recommendations would change certain sections in the city's charter. So this short 1-page piece of paper lays out what's currently in the charter. So I wanted people to get a sense of like, okay, they're saying we're going to change articles 1, 2, and 3 of the charter. Well, what's in that right now? So I wanted to make sure people at least had access to that just to get a sense of what we're dealing with currently in the city of St. Louis. So again, read through this document real quick. This is a proposed recommendation to create a Department of Transportation in the city of St. Louis. So check it out, read through it. And then there are some questions and some things you all can discuss with each other that are kind of provided up here if you want to use those as some kind of prompting questions. And then we will reconvene. I'll touch base with y'all in about 10-ish minutes or so to see where we at. And we'll reconvene as a larger group. So have fun. All right, yeah. All right, I'm doing a check to see where we at with time. Do people want a couple more minutes to wrap up their conversations, or are we ready to come back together as a full group to kind of share some stuff? We ready? Thumbs up, you ready? Okay. I'm gonna give people literally 2 minutes because they scribbling stuff down. So 2 minutes, and then we gonna because I'm curious, especially with this group over here. I want to hear what they gotta say. All right, y'all. We gonna come together now. We gonna come together now as a group. So what we are going to do, we have this microphone up here. So if one representative from each group, if you could come up and you can feel free to share whatever it was that your group discussed, overall thoughts and feedback on the recommendations, whatever. That's what we will talk about. So, group one, or is there a group that wants to go first? Or do I got to be the teacher and just like call people out? Are okay, come on. Come on up. Use the mic there. You got to turn it on though.
Testing. All right. Cool. So we were overall not enthused by what we read. A lot of it seemed to replicate what was on the original, but in some interesting expanded form that felt like a lot of nonsense, honestly. We do think this is a step in the right direction, that having a Department of Transportation is actually helpful. Some of the things that brought about skepticism was the appointment by the mayor. The qualification specifically, it seems to be the only add-on was administrative experience in transportation, which could mean a lot of things. And then one thing we brought up was timeline. And so does this speed up timeline if we have a Department of Transportation, or will it slow it down with increased bureaucracies? And the last thing we talked about was resourcing this. So if you're going from a streets department to a Department of Transportation, your infrastructure will need to shift drastically from managing people to cataloging and databasing. So thinking about software systems and so on and so forth. So we felt that, yes, there's a beauty in having a Department of Transportation, and yet this doesn't necessarily have the language of how it will be sustainable and actually build a true infrastructure.
All right, thank you for sharing y'all's thoughts. Wow. Okay. This is group two, right? Was this group two? Wow. Okay. I love it. All right. So thank you for sharing that. Any other group want to provide their thoughts? Come on up. And what group are y'all? Five. Okay.
Okay, so I think the first thing that we all kind of noted was that the language in this was a bit hard to understand, and we thought maybe that was intentional to an extent. So that was sort of our first note, was just about the language and that it was hard to understand, and a bit obnoxious. And then we sort of just discussed what it meant to move from having a streets department to a department of transportation, and how that would kind of streamline communication and resources, and how that sounded like a good idea. But then we started to discuss budget and things like that, and yeah, just more questions, I guess, and more discussion. Yeah.
All right, thank you. Group 5. Ah. All right, who's next? I will call. You looking right at me. All right, what group are y'all? All right, we're gonna go with group 4. Come on, yeah, don't be scared. Come on.
What up, everybody? But in our group, basically we said what the first two groups said, you know what I'm saying, the language not being understandable. And then also like this young lady said about they being sneaky, you know what I'm saying? Because it seemed like they just trying to shift more power to the mayor without us understanding that. So that's the main thing we talked about.
All right, thank you. Group 4. All right. 1. No? Is it, do you want to speak?
Go ahead.
Which one? Oh, hot mic.
So I feel like group 1, we kind of just took the information in. We didn't have a ton to add. One lady in the group felt like it was pretty straightforward and made sense what they were trying to accomplish. I think we all agree that we need to change. Like you said, it's been 100 years. I mentioned that the city is going through a change. So maybe the reason it hasn't been as updated is because the city went from having a high population to not having one. And now we're kind of in a growth situation now. So you got anything to add?
It was somewhat confusing to me, so I would need to do a lot more research myself.
Yeah, we need to read it again. Group 1 is still.
That's fair. Thank you. All right. Group 3? There's a 3. Yeah, I'm like, that's the last one. Saving the best for last. Yeah, no, yes. Clap it up. Clap it up.
Hello. Okay, there we go. So group 3, we did get to have a nice little discussion with some of our city representatives to kind of help us understand what we were seeing. Because we all finished reading it and we're kind of like, huh? And they kind of confirmed our like, huh? Because it doesn't really sound like a department of transportation the way it's written. Because we're like, it still sounds like y'all care only about maintaining the streets, and then a little bit of language was added, kind of, but it didn't sound like this new Department of Transportation is really going to be able to have this oversight of all the transportation aspects that come with transportation, really. And maybe question mark on the feelings of the person who was supposed to lead the department, being whoever the director is. And I feel like that's the gist. It's just, we feel like it left more questions than really anything else.
That's fair. Thank you. Wish it would for I feel like the normal, regular citizen, resident in the city of St. Louis. So I have a couple thoughts. but I am gonna put somebody on the spot right now. He know I'm looking at him. So I have like again one comment, one piece of feedback, but I would like if he would be open to coming up here. I know I'm putting him on the spot to maybe discuss or mention some of the things or provide a little bit more context as needed because he has been through TrailNet. They have really been advocating for this. So I would kind of like him to come up just to kind of provide maybe a little bit more context for us. And then, yeah, I have literally one thing to say after that. So can you please come up? Thank you. Clap it up. Cause this isn't planned. This isn't planned.
Hi, y'all. No. So again, my name is Charles Bryson. I am the policy catalyst for TrailNet. To give you just a little bit of background, I spent 5 years in state government for the state of Missouri. I spent 20 years in city of St. Louis government, and now been policy catalyst for TrailNet for 2 years. So that is my background. I'm going to try and remember to say hi to Alderwoman Shamim Clark Hubbard. And then we'll talk about some of the questions that you all have as I remember them, but please feel free to shout them out to me as I admit. Number one, you have to consider that you have to get something passed in order to make change, in order to create change. And so if you look at the original charter language, you would be surprised of how little is in the original charter language regarding the Department of Streets. Most of what you find is the Board of Public Service. Well, as you all are told to call the Citizen Service Bureau and say, oh, I have a problem in my alley, or I've got a pothole in my street, or the lamppost is out. You call the streets department, but depending on the amount of money it takes to get that thing fixed, it automatically goes to the Department of Public Service. And you have no way of knowing that unless you call continually and find out. And so what I looked for, and most of what's in that document came from me and TrailNet. What you see is two things. Number one, what things does the streets department already do that a Department of Transportation should do? So you look at street maintenance, street repair, when you look at lighting, when you look at sidewalks, et cetera. Those are all things the streets department already does. So you had to include all of them. But if you notice, it talks about planning without being relegated to the exact definition. One of the things the streets department does not do currently is plan literally for anything. You know who does planning for the city of St. Louis? The planning department. So you have 3 different departments in city government that are responsible for your streets and sidewalks and alleys. And yeah, I forget to put alleys in there, but your streets and sidewalks and alleys, instead of having one department. So one of the things that was added was the language to allow for planning by the streets department or the Department of Transportation. Long range planning. Some of the stuff in TMP that you heard tonight, no offense, Taylor, but that should be the quote unquote Department of Transportation's work with other city entities. But it should be the Department of Transportation's work. When you talk about where lighting should go, when you talk about issues related to signaling, those are all issues that should be done by a Department of Transportation. Because guess what? It's done in other cities. It's done in St. Louis County. St. Louis County doesn't have a streets department. They have a Department of Transportation and Public Works. For those of you who don't know, that's exactly what goes on in St. Louis County. Department of Transportation and Public Works. You remember 2 years ago when you had all those problems? We had all those problems related to all the scooters that were around. Well, guess what? You wonder where was the contract and where was the monitoring? We call that, in my trade, we call that micromobility. Micromobility ought to be handled by what? A Department of Transportation. It shouldn't be handled by BPS, Board of Public Service, because they don't know our streets and sidewalks. It shouldn't be handled by planning. It shouldn't be handled by any other entity but an entity that is responsible for the safety of each and every human being on each and every street and sidewalk and alley. And so all those things relative to streets, sidewalks, alleys, and everything in between should be handled by a Department of Transportation. And so when we put it before the Charter Commission, and I want to thank Kelly for that, all those charts and things. When she did that, every single time that a vote had to be taken to move, and these are all city residents, by the way. Each and every Charter Commission member is a city resident. They had to be. Each and every single time it came up for a vote, it was unanimous. It was absolutely unanimous. Are there things that are going to be missing? And I'll talk about one in a minute, but are there things that are going to be missing? Yeah. Did all of us try to catch everything? Yeah, we did. Some things we missed. Some things weren't even possible to get in now. We might have to look later. But one item I do want to talk about, and that is somebody mentioned the director. There's a hamstring in city government. No, there's a hamstring in governments all over the country. It has to do with how appointed officials are chosen and what's on their resume, what are their degrees, what are their past history of employment. What we wanted to do was open up the process. Because what we have found, frankly, no offense to the current director, but MoDOT doesn't understand St. Louis City streets. And if you think they do, you look at the TrailNet, shameless plug, you look at the TrailNet crash report. Some of the highest crash corridors in the city are MoDOT roads. So clearly, they ain't helping us. So this gives the mayor the duty and responsibility to hire a new person should they want, but someone who may have more administrative experience, maybe a little bit light on the degrees and the et ceteras that were directly related to the previous directors, because they had to have a certain amount of degrees, professional experience to be chosen as director of streets. This gives the mayor much more latitude to hire someone with maybe much more administrative skill, maybe more ability to understand issues related to the city of St. Louis, but maybe a little bit light on some of the degrees that you have to have, maybe a planner, because goodness knows city of St. Louis needs planning. Maybe someone who has more experience in traffic calming measures from other places that could lend that expertise to us for 2 or 3, 4 years. So I will tell you this, the document ain't perfect. I know there's stuff that I wanted to stick in there that couldn't go. But I think overall, what it sets the stage for is a much more robust city Department of Transportation that works from planning through the development process all the way to street maintenance, and includes all the other items that the quote-unquote current streets department does, like the trash pickup and recycling and the street lights, et cetera. So it does all of that, but the planning and the implementation processes, the community engagement, the micromobility stuff that we're wanting, the stuff about adding bike lanes or whatever you want to call them, cycle tracks, is in there. So we looked at everything and said, how do we make a much more robust city if you don't have a robust city department of transportation? So that was way too long.
Yeah, I wanted him to, I know I put him on the spot, but I know that his work and the efforts of TrailNet really like champion this effort. It's a lot. Like I've learned so much just from the little work that I'll be doing, just about how flawed our infrastructure is to do all the things. And if we don't have a solid infrastructure, we can't do nothing. And so to Charles's point, obviously, and just in general, there's no such thing as a perfect fill in the blank, right? Perfect bill, perfect policy, perfect program, perfection does not exist. But we do the best we can with what we have. And then if we realize, dang, this didn't work out, then we go back and tweak it as accordingly. So I know there was a lot of feedback and thoughts about some of the questions folks had about things that they would like to see, et cetera, et cetera. So this was the one thing I said I wanted to mention. I only said one thing. These recommendations, what you have in front of you is that it is a recommendation, which means this is just the beginning of the process. So now the Board of Aldermen will be considering this recommendation through the legislative process. So people had some thoughts, some questions, some things that they wanted to lift up, maybe concerns, maybe some suggestions up in there. You have the opportunity to weigh in on that. So, and that's why I was looking on my phone. I'm not doing the most on my phone. I'll be productive. So July 23rd, the Legislation and Rules Committee will have a meeting on Tuesday, July 23rd from 2 to 3 p.m. Obviously, so it will start at 2. If people want to weigh in, they can to provide their thoughts, feedback, some of the issues that were raised. I will be sure to, again, make sure if you have not done so, make sure you sign in at the table if you haven't done that. I'll be sure to send the meeting information to folks if you're interested in checking it out, if you're interested in providing public comment, because that information is also provided on the city's website. And maybe you don't want to provide a public comment at this point, but you just want to listen in, because that committee meeting will also, they'll be discussing the other recommendations I just sped through. So pretty much all of the recommendations that were on the slide, this committee, they will be considering those for approval. So then it can head to the full Board of Aldermen for their official, green light and moving on the process. So that was a lot. I know. I appreciate y'all for indulging me in this activity, but I hope that a lot of these things, a lot of these processes are intentionally designed to keep us out, to keep us not to be able to engage, period. And so, we can come together and figure out, we can brainstorm, we can help each other out to make sure that we stay engaged, we get our questions answered by the right people, to get the right information and be informed before we go to the polls. Because again, if the Board of Aldermen approve this, if they pass this is going to be on the ballot in November, period. So to be continued, I will share this information with folks so you can continue to engage with it. Because this is not over, okay? This is just part of the process. So I appreciate y'all indulging me in that activity. I appreciate y'all. Okay, so, all right, I'm looking at the time. So I do have some asks for y'all, okay? Some asks, all right? So before our next meetup, I'm gonna need y'all to do a little something, okay? A little something. It's not a lot. I'm not asking y'all for no money, okay? Ain't no plate going around, so it ain't that. But, we're about that action, and even small things like having this conversation, sharing this information with your network, sharing it on social media, those things matter. So we just want to ask y'all to do, we got some potential calls to action, a couple items that people can do before our next meetup next month. So again, share one thing you learned tonight with somebody you know. Your mom and them, your friend, your coworker, whatever. Please share this information. And if you share it on social media, please tag us, Transform 314, because I want to know. Because we're doing these things every month. I don't know if it's resonating. I don't know if it's hitting sometimes. So I like to know that feedback too, to make sure that we're doing what we trying to do. And then if we're not, then we can pivot accordingly to make sure we're meeting the needs of the community, because that's what we're here for. Also, another call to action, engage with one of these efforts, at least one that we talked about tonight. So Complete Streets has been passed, but obviously you can still be engaged in that process because it's just the beginning, because it's connected to a lot of other plans that are happening in the city of St. Louis, including the city's transportation and mobility plan. And again, I will be sure to share that survey link and information when Taylor gets it to me. So that's an opportunity to engage and share that with people and participate. And also, clearly, we talked about the Charter Commission and their recommendations that are being considered by the Board of Aldermen before it goes on the ballot, potentially, right, in November. So make sure you do something with one of those things that we talked about tonight. And then lastly, always, holler at your older person. Talk to them. Share your thoughts, your questions, your concerns. What's the point of this? Why y'all do this? Why do y'all say this stuff like this? What is the process? There was a lot of, I think, really valuable feedback that was provided in this space. A lot of great questions around the policies we discussed, around the potential changes to the charter. Talk to your other person if you can. Hit them up. They work for us. That's their job. Speaking of, I got to shout out Alderwoman Clark Hubbard in the back. Clap it up for her. Because I will tell you, Alderwoman Clark Hubbard, she is about that truth. She is about providing information. And I rock with her because she ain't my alder person. However, I know if I have a burning question, and I have for years and years and years before my new alderman, but that's a whole other conversation for a whole other day. But when I had questions, I would hit her up. And again, I'm not her ward, but she took the time to help me find the information, to connect me to who I needed to be connected to, the city of St. Louis. So I really appreciate Alderwoman Clark Hubbard with that. And so make sure too, you reach out to your alder person, because again, they work for you, So why not have a discussion with them about some of these things? But something I want everybody to do, and we need to do, I need y'all to invite at least one person to our next meetup, okay? You can plug the food. I don't care. We just need to get the people in the door, because as we know, it's going to take even more than the people that's in this space to bring about the changes that we want to see. And we got a lot of people in here. This is probably the most attended meetup we've had, I think, all year. Yes, snap it, clap it up. But it's going to take more people, and it starts here. So my ask to y'all, please invite one person to our next meetup, which is on August 21st, 6 p.m. Pure Catering will be feeding us again. I don't know what yet. We'll see how I feel, but the food gonna be good, and we're gonna get into some great conversation. I do want to leave it open for a bit to see if anyone had any. Oh, you have a question or an announcement or both? Oh, thank you. I totally forgot about that. So yeah, y'all, please come out to the Contemporary Art Museum, Transform 314. We partnered on an exhibit. I know, an exhibition. We out here. Really looking at and thinking about, obviously, we know elections are coming up. This is election season, and it's real, self-included. I have my issues with some of these things we're going to be deciding on, and some of these people we're going to have to vote for. However, at the end of the day, the stuff is going to roll. It is going to continue. So we have to engage, period, because the stuff's happening. So we're going to be having a great conversation on August 2nd. It's a Friday. I think the total event is in It aligns with Contemporary Art Museum's First Fridays. They do it once a month. Our conversation is going to be from 7 to 8 p.m., but the whole event starts at 5. Come out. It's going to be a bar. We're going to have a conversation. It is not going to be dry, I promise. But we're going to be talking about people that interacted with our project. They really laid out what are things that they want to see improved in their community. So what we're going to do is we're going to connect the dots of what people lifted up to connect it to what's on the ballot. Because at the end of the day, we got to vote our values. And that's on us to do that, regardless of who is in the little box that you got to pencil in and put on a computer. At the end of the day, that's on us. So we're going to have a conversation, connecting the dots, and I'm going to have some special people with me too. So make sure y'all come out Friday, August 2nd. Make sure you follow us on Transform 314 on our social media platforms, because we will provide the information about that event too. Thank you for that plug, because I totally forgot. Charles, you got something for us? I'll give you 2.
I want everybody to do one thing, and that is, I'm going to count to, I'm going to say go. Then I want you to put your hand to your face, okay, like that. And I'm going to count from 5 to 1. Ready? Go. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. In that, you can do that. In that amount of time, if you're driving a car 50 miles an hour, guess what? You have now gone the entire length of a football field without seeing anything that was in front of you. Anything. So you could have crashed at the 10-yard line or the 50-yard line or back in the other 10-yard line. What we're doing is we're talking about driving the change. And the reason we're doing that, we got a grant from General Motors who said, yes, there's a problem with people driving while what? Distracted.
So there is another way to engage there. Look at that. Just commit to the pledge. So that's the official end, the wrap up of our events. I'm gonna hang around a little bit as I kind of clean my stuff up, pull my things together. But if people have any thoughts, any questions, concerns, feel free to holler at me. But in the meantime, in between time, we got the pledge going around. Dang, I didn't know he was left-handed. We got the pledge going around, so be sure to sorry. So be sure to sign it. Also, again, if you have not, make sure you sign in on the sheet, please, if you haven't. So until then, I appreciate y'all for coming out. Be safe and take care. Peace.